This video discusses institutional ableism and contains mentions of hate groups and war crimes. This has been a content warning. Hello everyone, my name is Shrimi, and welcome to the fourth and final video of my Internalized Ableism series. In the previous three videos, we have covered self-doubt, also known as, but what if I'm faking it? Self-neglect, also known as, this is totally normal, and sure, I can do that. Chronic guilt and the push and crash cycle, also known as, what if I'm just lazy? For the final video in the series, I want to take a look at these remaining squares of the Internalized Ableism Bingo, which I should have mentioned from the start, which I have pulled into a category called Disidentifying, rejecting the reality of being disabled in society. Any of this sound familiar? Not wanting to call yourself disabled. Oh, I'm not really disabled. I'm not letting my illness stop me. Because I am not defined by my life-changing diagnosis. Now, you may ask, how is that ableist? Isn't it good to believe in disabled people's abilities and talents to pull themselves up by the bootstraps and overcome the struggles of their condition? Well, it's good not to give up on things just because you are disabled, that is true. But otherwise, saying, oh, I don't see disability, sounds a lot like saying, oh, I don't see race, as if that makes racism and inequality go away. A person who is disabled has extra struggles and is also facing ableism, so they require extra support or accommodations. And it's not a given that they can, or should, or have to, perform to the same exact standards as non-disabled people. So why do disabled people make their own lives harder by refusing to acknowledge their own struggles? Well, society generally believes that disability is bad and a sign of weakness. The word itself is quite stigmatized, to the point that people keep inventing funky phrases like special needs or differently abled or whatnot, just to sugarcoat it a little bit. And that's in English. In other cultures and languages, it can be even worse. For example, the word for disabled in my first language, Russian, is invalid, so like invalid or invalid, and it kind of implies defective. I feel like when most people hear that word, they imagine someone like a child with a very severe birth defect, or maybe a war veteran who lost his legs. But definitely not someone like me, who looks quote-unquote normal and is a high achiever and stuff. For someone like me, to be an invalid is almost laughable for people. Not to mention that I'm young, so I couldn't possibly be physically disabled. Oh, but I'm also too old to be autistic or ADHD because only kids have those? I just can't win this fight, can I? When it comes to the disabled person themselves, these perceptions often influence them and lead to the problem that I've mentioned in the previous videos, which is delaying or refusing getting help. Obviously, there are many reasons people do this, but I think a huge one is this notion that disability or illness is scary and bad. It means my life will be ruined and I don't want that. As well as the perceptions of disabled people as benefit scroungers who are just parasitizing on everyone else and are not contributing anything to society. There was a person, some decades ago, who really wished to solve this problem. His name was Adolf Hitler. He saw disabled people as useless eaters and as life that is unworthy of life. As a result, an estimated 275,000 disabled people were murdered in the Holocaust. At present, we renounce the Holocaust, or at least I hope so, yet the idea of disabled lives being unworthy of resources or not worth living continues on in legislation, in school and work settings, and even in actual disabled people's minds. Just think about that. In addition, the common media depictions of disability generally don't help. Either someone is completely helpless and invoking pity, or they miraculously overcome the limitations and make it their superpower. Like, look, he has no legs, but he can still run. Oh look, they had half of their brain removed, but they're still existing. This is known as inspiration porn. But disabled people are just people. I don't see why we have to constantly overcome, or otherwise we're not good enough. Isn't it good enough to just live? Now, as for my own experience of disidentifying, at the moment I actually find it kind of difficult to relate to, because I've had to fight so much to be diagnosed with literally anything and to get the right support that I need. And to my autistic brain, disidentifying with a diagnosis just seems somewhat illogical, since surely a diagnosis doesn't affect whether or not you have the problem, it just confirms what's already there. But it's a little different with the concept of disability. I also didn't used to call myself disabled. I used to just describe myself as neurodivergent, and the label disabled just felt wrong. I didn't like the implication, and I also didn't feel like I deserved it because I didn't feel like I was disabled enough. It didn't help that I was perceived as abled my entire life. But in recent years, I started finding comfort in the word, because it validates my experience. It helps me accept that I don't function very well. Throughout my life, I was always invalidated and accused of laziness, selfishness, trying to get out of responsibility, faking. So, realizing and accepting that I actually have disabilities freed me from that pressure of constantly having to conform to non-disabled people's standards of how a human should function. I really am different, and I can't help it. And that's fine. My life is still worth living, and so is yours, person watching this. In my opinion, things like diagnoses, medications, mobility aids and so on are good. They don't have to mean negative things, or represent being sick or giving up. To me, they represent the exact opposite: healing, coping, learning to adapt to circumstances. That's how many disabled people see their aids. Not as a prison, but as a tool. I used to feel really bad for anyone who uses a wheelchair, and couldn't imagine myself having to do that. But now that I've actually met some wheelchair users, while I'm not exactly lining up to be one, they often see it as an extension of their body that lets them do more of what they want to do. And so if I end up needing a wheelchair at some point in my life, I think I'll be a lot more okay with it, because I know that it's not the end of your life. And by the point when you actually are considering it, once you get it, it feels like a huge relief because you can do more with it. Lots of people think autism is terrible and shouldn't exist, but I don't know if I would rather be neurotypical. I feel like it wouldn't really be me anymore. At the same time, I do completely understand not wanting to have any limitations, especially when you see most people around you not having them. It makes you feel like shit. I get it. But it's not useful, because I have realized that the world is cruel and unfair, and there are some things that we just can't change. And also there are some things that are just not your fault. They have nothing to do with you. They're external factors. I am currently doing DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, and there's a concept in it called radical acceptance. It's a really difficult concept, but it's also been quite useful to me. It's about accepting reality rather than trying to deny it, and being pragmatic in how to cope with that reality. Though at the same time, if you think something is wrong, that you're not getting the help you need, if you think your doctors are dismissing you, then absolutely self-advocate. Fight for yourself and your human right to health. I unfortunately have to do it all the time, and often find myself talking to other disabled people about how to best do it. Thankfully, the internet has communities for almost anything these days, so you have access to your peers with the same conditions, as well as to charities that could point you in the right direction or otherwise support you. All of this said, I do believe that disability spaces should be welcoming to anyone, regardless of whether they identify as such. It's a personal thing. So it's fine if you don't want to describe yourself as disabled or having a disability. Just think of why and whether that is good for you or not. If you feel that your condition does affect you significantly, then it's okay to use the word, and it's okay to use resources or extra help, because you need it. So take it. And it's also okay not to be productive all the time. In fact, it's really important. When I was doing guided self-help, which is a type of cognitive behavioral therapy, they made me write schedules for myself, and I had to schedule 3 types of activities. There were routine activities, which is just things to do every day, like brushing your teeth, eating, stuff like that. Then there were necessary activities, which were like tasks that you need to do, and they could vary on different days. And then there were pleasurable activities, and my therapist was really adamant that I need to schedule those into my day because it's really important to rest and to have fun. And this notion of pleasurable antidepressant activities has really helped me. It kind of made me feel productive just for having fun, which was really good. So I would encourage anyone struggling with wanting to be productive all the time to try that out. There are also some other YouTube channels that taught me a lot about disability and probably inspired this channel to exist. There's one called SBSK, or Special Books for Special Kids. It features interviews with lots of different disabled people, and it's really wholesome and informative. It really made me appreciate the diversity of the disabled experience. I'm also a big fan of Jessica Kellgren-Fossard, who's a disabled YouTuber. A few months back she made a video called You Are Not Useless, which is also on the subject of internalized ableism, and it really hit home. She stresses that maybe we shouldn't judge anyone by their productivity, maybe it's okay to just exist. Also, the hashtags disability has no age requirement and make ableists uncomfortable were recently trending on Twitter, and there are some really great insights there. You're not too young or too old or too anything to need an aid or help. If you're thinking about it, then it's probably relevant. Finally, a huge reason I personally actually love the label disabled lately is an FU to our society that values productivity above everything and casts some lives as less valuable than others. I'm going to love myself and be happy and proudly disabled out of spite and to upset ableists, including internalized ones. That's it. That's the video. This brings us to the end of the Internalized Ableism series. This was a really difficult video to plan, and there's still so much that I cut out and wish that I could have covered in more depth. I'm definitely going to make more disability-related content, and may return to this topic in the future as well. Thank you so much for watching this far, and for all of the support and feedback that I have received over the last few months since starting this channel. Also, thank you to whoever made the Internalized Ableism Bingo. It actually really helped me and opened my eyes so much. At the moment I feel like my art-making capacity just can't keep up with all the video ideas that I have, so I need to figure out how to manage that. I would absolutely love to hear feedback on the series. Positive, constructive, philosophical, really anything. Likewise, if there's anything in particular that you'd like me to cover on the channel, then tell me so in the comments and I'll see what I can do. If you enjoyed this, you can subscribe to my channel for more art and activism content, and click the bell button to be notified about new videos. I currently aim to post every other weekend, although sometimes it may be a little less frequent. Also, thank you so much for helping my channel reach 100 subscribers. I know in the grand scheme of things it's not a massive milestone, but it's really cool to go from 0 to 1 to 100. And that's actually why I like to make art, because I can make nothing into something, and I think that's cool. I hope you can continue to support me in the future as well. Thank you so much for watching. This was Shrimi, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye!